to do a little bit of a switch in topic and talk about karma, and specifically some of the kinds of karma that we create with the three jewels. Yeah, because we've talked a lot about karma, that we create with other living beings, and how important our motivation is, and treating others with kindness, and so on and so forth. But it's also, the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are also very powerful objects with which we create karma. So I thought of talking a little bit about that for the next few days. And so, we usually start, the Guru, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And I thought I'd actually start with the Sangha and go backwards. Yeah, because the karma that we create in relationship to the Sangha can be very powerful because there's so many Sangha members, okay? So what we mean by Sangha, okay, first of all, it's the Sangha jewel, the jewel that we take, the Sangha that we take refuge in, which is actually the true cessations and true paths in the minds of people who have, who are liberated. Yeah, that's the actual Sangha jewel. But we often say it's the Arya beings, the people who have those realizations. So one person in that way can be a Sangha jewel, yeah? And then we also have the representation of the Sangha jewel, which is a monastic community of 4 or more fully ordained people, okay, which we now have at the Abbey, which is nice, okay? So one individual monastic is not the representation of the entire Sangha jewel, because there's something that happens when the Sangha comes together and does the ceremonies and lives and practices together. You get a whole different energy and a whole different movement or something, that happens, okay? So, yeah. So I thought a little bit to talk about the relationship that with the Sangha and the kinds of karma we can create, with respect to the Sangha, okay, because it's this powerful refuge. So if we look at the refuge guidelines, under the one of the Sangha, we'll see that one of the things that we want to be really mindful of is friendships, yeah? Because if we make friendships with people who are very hostile towards our spiritual practice, who criticize our teacher, who criticize the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, it becomes quite dangerous for us because it's so easy for our mind then to turn negative and to start having a lot of doubts that we didn't have before, okay? So we don't become best friends with people who are really critical of our spiritual path. That doesn't mean we hate those people. It doesn't mean we're rude and don't speak to those people. It doesn't mean we lack compassion for those people. If anything, we should have a lot of compassion, okay? And we're polite, and, some of these people may even be relatives. Yeah, I mean, in my case, they were relatives because my family didn't agree with my ordaining. But you can still live with people and have a good relationship with them without becoming, best friends where you listen to each other's advice and so on. That can be quite harmful for us if we're trying to practice, okay? Then there's some other things that are much more practical in terms of how we treat property that belongs to the Sangha, okay? And here, it could mean the Sangha jewel, the Arya beings that are our actual refuge, and they would be represented on our altar by some of the statues, yeah, of the Arhats. We have the statues on our altar of the 16 Arhats, and of Dakas and Dakinis and different beings like this. And then the Sangha also, the representation, the community of 4 more fully ordained people. Okay? So, yeah, in terms of the community, the fully ordained people. One of the things we really want to avoid is creating disharmony in the community. Even at the time of the Buddha, this was a problem. The Buddha has, his cousin Devadatta. I always tell people, if you think your relatives are problematic. Yeah, Devadatta tried to kill the Buddha. But he also set himself up as a different object of refuge and drew, had a whole community around him and was trying to get people to leave the Buddha's community and follow him. And so it created clearly a lot of havoc and a lot of confusion in people's minds. Okay? So causing some kind of schism, where you would have 4 more monastics on one side and 4 more on the other, and they used to be united, but now you're causing them to separate, argue, and not get along. Okay? So doing that, or supporting somebody who does that. Yeah, and it's in some of our precepts, it's quite a negative action to do that. Okay, then also criticizing, judging, and disrespecting the Sangha community, or somebody who is an Arya, who's realized the ultimate nature of reality. And this is actually very easy to do, because we are so full of opinions and so full of ideas. And so even there could be somebody who's a bodhisattva and, they're trying to benefit sentient beings, and we criticize them and we say, why are you doing things like this? You should be doing things like that, and you're this, you're that, and you hear it a lot of times, people being quite critical of other people. And some of those, you look at even at His Holiness the Dalai Lama, you have the Beijing government calling him the splitter of the motherland, and, the worst thing since burnt toast. And, so you create a lot of negative karma by criticizing holy beings like this. And then the same goes for criticizing a community, I remember one time many years ago, because there is a precept, not to eat in the afternoon. And one person was staying at a monastery where that precept is kept rather strictly. And then they called me up afterwards and they said, oh, what those people are doing is so damaging. They're not eating dinner and it's bad for their health. And so negative. Not just kind of a thing of out of concern for people's health, but just a criticism. So that kind of criticism, or just a blanket criticism of a whole group of people who are really earnestly trying to keep their precepts and practice, And as Sangha members, we're also very likely to do this because we live in very close contact with the Sangha. So it's very easy to say, oh, I don't understand why this monastery is doing this. I don't understand. So there's one thing, again, between just raising a concern or talking about how decisions are made and being critical and judgmental. Those are 2 different things, So I'm talking about the critical, judgmental mind. To be careful about that. Okay? And then using the things that belong to the Sangha without asking permission. This one's very easy. Or taking things that belong to the Sangha without asking permission. So, the things that we have out on the shelves here or in the bathroom, out on the counter, not the things inside the drawers and inside the cabinets and inside the closets, but out, then that is all it's freely offered for everybody to use. Of course, if you run out of soap, you can go in the drawers and pull out some soap or tissue or toilet paper or whatever, renew those supplies, of course. But things outside of that, brooms, we can if somebody asks us to clean, we should use brooms and snow shovels and whatever equipment if we're asked to do a specific project. But just taking things and using them because we feel like doing it, is something we should avoid. And then also taking things that actually belong to the Sangha and using them for our own personal selves. Claiming maybe food was offered to the Sangha community, but instead of it being put out for everybody to enjoy, we work in the kitchen, so we take it ourselves, or, something like that. Something's offered to the Sangha, and before it even gets discussed how to use it, or goes in the, where the storage manager, is going to look over it, we just take it for our room or whatever. Oh, somebody donated a carpet, I want it. And it goes in our room before anybody else even knows we had it. Okay? So, it's really a mindfulness practice to become very aware of, what does belong to us personally, what is freely offered, what belongs to the community, where we have to ask the community. Maybe you don't ask the whole community. There's one person in charge of something, so you ask that person. Yeah? So to become quite aware of those kinds of things. Even using paper and envelopes and stuff like that. We can make a policy together that, okay, everything can be used by everybody at all times, all the residents. But that's quite a different thing than if we don't have that policy and people going in and helping themselves to offer supplies for their own personal use. Okay, so this is something we might want to consider doing, or using stamps that were given to the Sangha. We use them personally for something that isn't specifically for the Sangha. Yeah, often what we do is we give some of our donations or something back to the Abbey, and then we use those things. As perfectly all right. Okay, but to be very careful about that kind of thing. So I think that's enough for one day. I'll continue tomorrow. I have a whole list. But I thought we've never been through this in detail, and it's quite important because otherwise it's because it's not just a thing of do this, don't do that. It's a thing of what's going on in our mind. How aware are we of the things around us and who they belong to and how they can be used? And how aware are we of our own motivation when we use different things? Yeah? Do we just say, do we think, I'm doing this for the community, so I use community property? Or is it just, I want this, so I take it? Yeah? So really it's a reflection getting us to be more careful of what we're doing and also our motivation, what we're thinking. Because as we know, our motivation is one of the key things that determines the kind of karma and the weight of the karma that we create.